So for those who are here already, welcome everyone to the July TMA Blue Tech Executive Talk. My name is Sharon Arspor. I think everyone here so far knows me. I'm a project coordinator for TMA and the one who puts together some of these events. And this month we are highlighting NOAA's SBIR program, and here with us to present is Mr. Richard Fulton, the program manager for NOAA's SBIR program. So thank you, Rich, for joining us this month. Can everyone see my slide change?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So before we get to the program, I just wanted to highlight a few upcoming events for TMA. Each month we have 2 webinars, the Blue Tech Global Connect and the TMA Executive Talk Series. So our schedule for the next couple of months is up on our website. And just to briefly go through them, so the Blue Tech Global Connect series highlights 3 international companies in a particular space with a 10-minute presentation by each company and time for some moderated discussion. And our upcoming themes are big data, water and wastewater, and aquaculture and biomarine. Then our executive talk series highlights a particular program or a topic of interest to blue tech companies. Next month, we'll have Katuvi, which is a marketing company that focuses specifically on environmental and marine clients. In September, we'll have a joint talk with 2 fractional CFOs. And then in October, we have the California Manufacturing Technology Consulting. It's a mouthful. So we hope that you can join any of those upcoming webinars, and we look forward to seeing those who are here again. And I also wanted to take a second to highlight Blue Tech Week. This year will be virtual, but we're still going to be doing 5 events over 7 days with various panels of speakers and working groups for the Blue Tech community. So I've just listed some of our confirmed speakers, and we're really excited to keep sharing it as the list grows. And yeah, we hope everyone can join us for a great week this November, and we'll be providing an update on registration soon. So finally, if you don't have our contact information and would like to get in touch with someone on the TMA team, it's listed here. Tamara, who I think might be on the call, and Melissa, between the 3 of us, we can answer most any of the TMA related questions. So please do not hesitate to get in touch with us. So without further ado, let's get to today's speaker. Rich will be presenting on the NOAA SBIR program with a 25-ish to 30-minute presentation, and then there'll be plenty of time for Q&A. So out of courtesy, if everyone can just stay on mute and put their questions into the chat function, I will be just reading them out after the presentation is over so Rich can answer your questions. And I'm also recording this webinar so that those who are unable to join today can still be able to access the information, and I'll make it available to the audience. So I'll just read Rich's bio quickly as well. Mr. Rich Fulton has been the NOAA SBIR Program Manager in TPO since March 2020. He's a meteorologist and has been a NOAA and NASA employee in multiple science, technology, and engineering research and development offices during his 35-year career. Prior to coming to TPO's SBIR program, he was the NOAA Weather Testbed and Air Quality Program Manager in OAR's Office of Weather and Air Quality since 2015. He managed a portfolio of about 100 grant projects at many universities to develop, transition, and apply cutting-edge technology to NOAA's National Weather Service to improve weather and air quality forecasting and warning services for tornadoes, severe thunderstorms, flooding, and hurricanes. Prior to that, he worked in NOAA's Environmental Satellite and Information Service as an engineering project manager, developing and planning next-generation weather satellite observing systems, and also NOAA's National Weather Service as a project manager and team leader in Doppler weather radar applications to hydrology. He started his career at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center doing remote sensing research and development using geostationary and polar orbiting weather satellites, polarimetric weather radars, and high altitude research aircraft. He is a certified project management professional by the Project Management Institute since 2008. So let me change my presentation so I can give it to Rich. Let me know if you've received it.
Yep, I have. Okay, hold on. Let me make this full screen if I can here. Okay, can you see the slide full screen?
I can. Can I get a thumbs up from someone else?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay.
Yes, this is Jim. I can see it.
Yep,
Thank you.
Great.
visible.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. Good afternoon. It's 6 minutes into the afternoon here on the East Coast. We're supposed to get up into the mid-90s the next 3 days, so it's going to be very warm. I'm looking forward to staying inside the next couple of days here in my air-conditioned house. I'm calling in from Maryland. My office is located in Silver Spring, Maryland. It's on the north side of Washington. So yeah, I'm going to talk today. Let me see if I can get rid of this window. There we go. So I want to talk today, just give you kind of a high-level overview of NOAA's SBIR program. I understand that some of you may have already gotten SBIR grants, I don't know, from NOAA or other agencies. But I will provide an overview of the program itself and specifically NOAA's SBIR program. So I'm located in the Technology Partnerships Office of NOAA, which is in the Office of Oceanic and Atmospheric Research. Okay, if I can get there we go. So here's just a high-level overview of NOAA. If you don't already know us pretty well already, our website shown there in the upper left, and in the upper right is the website for the SBIR program. So as you may well know, NOAA has a very diverse portfolio of activities, and our mission is to understand and predict changes in climate, weather, oceans, and coasts. I happen to be on the weather side of the house for most of my career. Also, the second mission for NOAA is to conserve and manage coastal and marine ecosystems and resources. And then NOAA collects a lot of data from, as shown in the slide here, from various vessels, aircraft, surface observing systems, as well as way up hundreds of thousands, well, actually 20,000 miles up into the atmosphere with our environmental satellites. So we do sharing that knowledge and information with others is a big part of our mission. So if you're not familiar, these are kind of the main 9 mission areas for NOAA, and I'll kind of step through these quickly just to give you a little sense of how we operate and how we're organized in NOAA. Each of these boxes tends to be associated with a particular organizational office, what we call line offices in NOAA. And so the first one, weather, you're probably familiar with the National Weather Service. So, you know, they're obviously working, giving forecasts, collecting data, you know, helping to save lives and livelihoods. Climate is a part of NOAA's mission from the data collection side to the climate forecasting. And that mission area spans a couple of our line offices, from the National Weather Service to the Office of Oceanic and Atmospheric Research, where they do a lot of the data collection and research. Oceans and Coasts, of course, is National Ocean Service, so I'm sure you're all very familiar with them and their activities, as well as probably the National Marine Fisheries Service, which you know, provides science-based conservation and management for sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, etc. Environmental satellites, so our NESDIS, National Environmental Satellite Data and Information Service, you know, are the ones that build the satellites and launch them up into the upper atmosphere and monitor and provide all that data down to us for our use in forecasting and other purposes. So research, the NOAA's Office of Oceanic and Atmospheric Research, that's where I'm at, and that's where the SBIR program is located. And we are the sort of the research arm of NOAA, although research is still done in each of the different line offices. And in fact, in OAR, we do research on all of the mission areas that I've just mentioned. So marine and aviation operations, these are the folks that fly the airplane, the NOAA aircraft, and operate the ships and vessels that we send out to collect data. And then NOS, National Ocean Service, does the charting activities, and then they also manage the sanctuaries. So that's just a little sample of NOAA, if you were not already familiar with it. Let me talk a little bit about the SBIR program. So this is a $4 billion federal program, and there are a total of 11 federal agencies that participate in the SBIR program. It's all of the agencies that have funded research, that are funded to do research and provide research funding to external agencies as well as internal funding for research. NOAA is obviously one of those 11 agencies, but it is a competitive program that encourages small businesses in the U.S. to engage with the federal government to develop products and services that have commercialization and marketing potential by these companies while supporting their own agency mission needs. So these are the overarching program goals, and I didn't mention that the Small Business Administration in the federal government, they are the ones that manage the SBIR program, provide the policy guidance and so forth for each of us 11 agencies that participate. And they call it, as you see down there on the bottom, America's Seed Fund, and that really is a good description of the program. So the goals are listed there: to stimulate technological innovation, to meet federal R&D development needs, to foster and encourage participation of socially and economically disadvantaged persons and companies, and to increase the private sector commercialization of these innovations that are funded with federal money. So I mentioned the 11 agencies that participate in the SBIR STTR program. The STTR stands for Small Business Technology Transfer Program, which is similar to the SBIR program. NOAA itself does not have an STTR program. We only have the SBIR program. But the 11 agencies are shown there. Obviously, DoD is right up there at the top, and they fully consume about half of the total federal budget of about $4 billion. HHS, or specifically NIH, takes up another quarter. And then DOE, NSF, NASA, they are other big agencies. NOAA itself is down in this little thin slice here at the top of this pie chart. So our budget's about $10 million a year. So SBIR program eligibility. So this slide kind of talks about who is eligible to apply for SBIR program funding. So it must be a for-profit U.S.-owned company, owned and operated in the U.S. with under 500 employees. SBA's experience, the Small Business Administration's experience with this program, is that many of these companies, have fewer than, say, 10 employees. So they are really small companies in general. The work must be done in the U.S. The PI must be employed by the company, and the focus is on performing cutting-edge, risky R&D. That is why we fund this program, because this is a program that funds the type of risky research that other programs may not necessarily fund. So the point of the program is not to purchase equipment, not commercializing a technology that's already been developed, or one with low risk, needing only capital to push it forward. So those are not the types of things that we fund through the SBIR program. So now let's talk about NOAA's SBIR program specifically. So we follow the similar goals of the larger SBIR program across the federal government. We fund development of innovative products and services that relate to and benefits NOAA's mission. So obviously the things we fund are relevant to NOAA's mission, but commercial potential, is obviously required. That is one of the things that we look at when we are deciding about funding a particular project. We do use grants as the funding mechanism. Up until last year, we used solely contracts, and then we have decided to switch away from contracts and moved into the grant world starting this year. We've got starting at the beginning of this year, we funded our first set of grants through the SBIR program. Our annual budget's about $10 million per year, which is relatively small in the grand scheme of things. We do provide commercialization assistance to the small businesses in what we call the phase 2 of our SBIR program, to help them, develop marketing plans and reach out to others that might be interested in further funding the program in phase 3. And I'll talk about the phases here shortly. So here is just a sample of some of the small businesses that NOAA has funded over the past 2 years. So it is a diversity of companies, and certainly this is just a small selection of those that we do fund. So last year, as you may know, each year we release a request for proposals, and once per year, and within that RFP, we define a set of topics, science, technology, engineering topics that we'd like to focus on that particular year. So last year, our RFP that went out had these 5 topic areas: aquaculture, recreational commercial fisheries, weather service improvement and evolution, next generation NOAA platforms, and next generation observation and modeling systems. Now, within each of these areas, there are subtopics that get into a little more detail of the kind of things that we're looking for. But the whole reason that we moved to the grant world as opposed to the contract world is we are looking for you all to provide solutions on these general areas. And it's not, we wanted to get away from us defining what the real needs are. So all of you being out there in the real world know what the problems are and the solutions. And so that's what we're really looking for you to help us with. It's not where we're providing, detailed requirements of the kind of things we're looking for. Just general topics is what we're focused on through these NOFOs. So that was last year. So this year, NOAA has come up with these 4 main science and technology research focused areas. And if you want more information on each of these, down at the bottom there is a web link to our NOAA Research Council website that where you can download short strategic plans talking about how NOAA plans to improve and understand each of these areas better in the coming 5 years. So the top left there, unmanned systems. So that's the aerial, terrestrial, marine vehicles. That's obviously a big area. It's a growing area over the past at least 5 years. And I know we currently fund in NOAA's SBIR program a number of unmanned system projects. The upper right there, artificial intelligence. Again, that's a big growing area. And artificial intelligence being, the collection of data, large data sets, and then analyzing the data to find trends and patterns, and then to also use that data for forecasting purposes. For example, weather forecasting. I funded, before I moved into this job, I funded some researchers at the universities to develop machine learning techniques to improve forecasting of severe weather. So that is an area that NOAA will focus on. Then there's the omics, which I'm not a big, I don't understand this all that well, given that I'm a meteorologist, but it is a suite of biological methods and tools, used to analyze materials such as DNA, RNA, or proteins to help keep our water supply and seafood safe, and to make corals more stress resilient. Now, all of you may probably know more about this than I do, but that is an area that NOAA is going to focus on in the coming years. And then cloud computing on the lower right there is certainly a big area, with the Googles and the Amazons out there, and so much data that NOAA collects. We're working on making that accessible through some of these Amazon Web Services and other things like that. So that is another big area. And of course, Neil Jacobs, our NOAA administrator, comes from the private sector where cloud computing is pretty heavily used on the weather side. All right, so there, I kind of mentioned earlier that there's a 3-phase process for SBIR through this competitive grant program. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3. Where Phase 1 is the concept development. It's only 6 months and $150,000 maximum. This is the kind of the exploratory phase to show us that you have a good handle and you're sort of working towards your final product. Phase 2 is the prototype development. It's more where the R&D really is done there, and that's a 2-year, $500,000 maximum award. And then Phase 3, once you get through Phase 1 and 2, you move into Phase 3. There's no funding. This is called the commercialization phase. There's no NOAA funding, and it's the same with the 11 other agencies. They don't provide funding in Phase 3, any federal funding, and that's where you're expected to move out into the marketplace and get other funding to move it forward. So in Phase 1, we typically award about 25 awards per year. We just started a set of 21 that started at the beginning of this month. Our historical success rate is about 23%, so about 1 out of every 4 proposals that we get in, we fund. Moving from Phase 1 to Phase 2 is about a 2/3 success rate, so typically 2/3 of the Phase 1 projects are successful and deemed worthy enough to go into Phase 2. But that is competitive as well. So as you can see down there on the bottom is our annual solicitation to award process, and so there are two processes that we run for Phase 1 and Phase 2. We have our we start out with publishing of the request for proposals, and then there's the proposal submission, and then our evaluation, peer review evaluation, and then the award of the Phase 1 project. And we run a similar process in Phase 2. We have a Phase 2 RFP that's coming out at the end of this month. That's only open to companies that have current Phase 1 NOAA projects. So this is what the schedule looks like for Phase 1. So this is the first opportunity for all of you, if you're interested, to propose projects that start at the Phase 1 level. So right now we're formulating our research topics that we will put in the request for proposal. The RFP will go out October 15th. That's the plan. It will go out onto grants.gov. So if you're familiar with the grants.gov, it's the federal repository and interface with the public for all the federal funding that goes out through grant programs. And so NOAA, will be publishing our RFP on October 15th of this year. Then proposals will be due January 8th of 2021, with the proposal evaluation phase through March of next year. We would typically award in May, and then with a project start date of June. Now, Phase 2 follows a different staggered schedule similar to this. So I'm about finished here. I mentioned earlier about NOAA's Commercialization Assistance Program. It's available to all Phase 2 awardees to foster success in Phase 3 and beyond. And basically the way it works is we have hired a third-party contractor who provides services to our Phase 2 companies, customized training and mentoring, assistance in the development of commercialization strategy and your commercialization plan and business plan, that kind of stuff, and networking and industry connections. So that, I guess that is the last slide that I have for this talk. There's my contact information if you have any questions or comments. The email address is shown there, noaa.sbir. I do get all of those emails, and you can use that for any general questions that you might want to follow up with. And you see there our website and our Twitter feed. So so that's all I have from this end. If there are any questions, I'm open to that.
Everyone, if you have any questions, just put them into the chat function and I can read them out.
I will also use this opportunity while we're waiting for some questions to just bring up that we are also working with the Brink. And so they have discussed that when there is, this grant, that they would work with a cohort of at least TMA member companies who are interested in applying for the grant to kind of help through the process, because we know, especially for some small companies, as much as NOAA has helped facilitate or just make a little easier the process, that it can still be it can be used. So we do have that available, or well put it together for this.
So I see some coming in. I'll start with the first question. Can you tell us about the record keeping and administrative requirements for SBIRs for a startup and smaller company?
Okay, so record keeping and what was the other one?
Administrative requirements.
Administrative, okay. So typically, so on the grantee side, there are, for phase one, since the phase ones are 6-month projects, you're required to submit a progress reports after 3 months and then a final report after the end of the 6-month period. With the phase two, since they're 2-year projects, that goes to 6-month frequency. So 6-month progress reports are due, explaining what you've completed over the prior 6 months, and then a final report, obviously, at the end of that period. And you also have to submit financial statements about how you're drawing down your funds from NOAA. So does that kind of answer the question? Those are primarily the two primary record keeping and documentation that we would require through the program.
I'm going to move on to the next one. Where do we sign up to receive notifications about the program?
Okay, yeah, you see there on that last slide, the noaa.sbir@noaa.gov, and it's also on our website, the same email. If you send an email to that and just request that you be added to our distribution list, our SBIR distribution list, we will add you to that. Before we distribute our RFPs, we do send out emails to all of the constituents on that list, explaining the due dates and that kind of stuff. And we also, in NOAA, we host every month a webinar. Each of our companies will come in and we ask them to give a webinar to all of our NOAA constituents and stakeholders on the work that they've done. So you will get notices from that, being on that distribution list of these companies and their upcoming webinars.
Great. Does NOAA consider weather modification technology?
That's getting into a question. Yeah. Does it consider it technology? Yeah, sure. Why not? It is technology. It's not something that we're, is a priority area that we're funding now. I know certainly in SBIR, it's not been one of the areas that we funded over the last several years. As far as other non-SBIR NOAA programs, I just know from having worked in the Office of Weather and Air Quality that is not one of the areas that we view as a priority area that we would fund. But who knows, that could change.
Okay, and the next one, I'm just sifting through the list. Can you walk us through an easy way to stay abreast of grants.gov RFP announcements? It seems daunting for newcomers, admittedly. Filtering by topic and alerts, for instance.
Yeah, I would not disagree with that. It is daunting. I mean, there's $4 billion worth of RFPs, that go out every year through the SBIR program. So, I've not used grants.gov a lot myself. Obviously, I use what grants.gov sends us when people submit proposals to us. I'm not sure. They do have a filtering search capability, and I've used that myself to find our own NOAA RFPs. But in terms of guidance on setting up scripts or some other automated ways to find stuff, yeah, I mean, that certainly is more of a challenge for a small company to do, given that you don't have staff. And certainly larger companies have dedicated staff that's all they do is they go on and search for funding opportunities from the federal government or other institutions. So, there's not a lot of NOAA RFPs that go out, but if you sign up for that distribution list that I just mentioned, you will get notices about upcoming RFPs that will appear on grants.gov for the SBIR program and other NOAA programs that have research programs in OAR do similar things. They have distribution lists, or you can check their website. Every few months, they do make announcements about upcoming RFPs and then direct people typically to the grants.gov website.
That's good information. Hold on. Is there a list of problem statements that you are looking to have solved by technical development, or are we presenting the problem as part of our proposal?
Good question. Yeah, I mentioned that we have these S&T topic areas, research topic areas that we present in the RFP each year, and they change from year to year depending what NOAA's priorities are. So, that is where we outline what we view as areas that need work. But in that topic area, we don't provide solutions. We don't tell you how to solve the problem. We're looking for your innovative solutions. So it is in your proposal where you say, hey, I am addressing, topic 2B, aquaculture, say, and I have a solution, an innovative solution that I would like some funding to determine if it has marketing capability. So we are looking for your innovative ideas to solve these problems. We provide you a broad canvas of topic areas, and we leave it up to you to provide us your innovative solutions.
Has NOAA considered offering an I-Corps program like NSF, NIH, and DoD?
I don't know much about the I-Corps. I have heard of it, and I know our office is looking into being a participant as one of the I-Corps federal participants, and I'm not totally sure how that works, and I'm not sure how NSF's I-Corps program works, but we're only just starting to look into that. NSF, their budget is far larger than ours is, so they, certainly they have money and people that are interested in that program. NOAA's program is much smaller, but we are looking into it. I know our deputy director is going to be participating in that in the coming year.
The next question references the first one about record keeping, asking particularly about accounting. Do we need to set something up in particular?
Oh, in terms of accounting, okay, yeah. If you do accept a federal grant, you are required to set up an account called an ASAP account with the federal government. ASAP is I'm not even sure what that means. It has something to do with accounting. off the top of my head, I can't remember what that means. But anyway, any grantee who wants to be paid, and I assume all of you want to be paid, you have to set up this account as soon as or even before you apply for a grant, because that is the mechanism through which you draw down funds. And we had some issues with that here earlier this year, where we awarded some new grants and the companies, were not prompt in setting up their ASAP account. And ASAP can take a month or more to get going. So it is something, if you do get a grant, you need to really focus on getting that account set up. And there are multiple hoops that you have to jump through to get that set up. But we have an office in NOAA who will help step you through that whole process.
You mentioned prior AI SBIR projects. We are a big data and AI startup company. Do you foresee more future opportunities this/next year on this topic?
Yes, I do. Those 4 areas that I mentioned earlier, one of which was AI, I expect that our upcoming RFP will have topic areas that address artificial intelligence. So from the SBIR side, yes, we do see that. And I know from working in my previous office in OAR, we did have specific RFPs that went out for grants that did request proposals on artificial intelligence techniques, at least as they relate to weather forecasting. So I'm not totally sure about the ocean side of the house there, but I mean, given that NOAA has decided that AI is one of the 4 main S&T topic areas for 2020, you can guarantee that there will be more opportunities for applying for funding from NOAA to address those issues.
Okay, and the last question I have so far. I understand NOAA is collaborating with the DOE on the Powering the Blue Economy initiative. How is that coming along? Leveraging ocean wave energy could be very advantageous for ocean and climate observations. Will there be an SBIR topic on this?
I don't know if there will be a topic on that specifically. We're working on developing those topics now. I'll admit I don't know anything about that activity. In working with DOE, I've heard some discussion about that, but I don't. It's not something that I've been focused on so much in the 4 months since that I've been here. So I don't know. I can't really answer that question.
And to follow up on that one, we recently, just yesterday, in fact, had a webinar on offshore renewable energy for the Blue Tech Global Connect, and did follow up a little bit on the Powering the Blue Economy initiative. So I can connect you, Jack, with the recording for that webinar, and then just some other resources that could be helpful.
Okay, yeah, sure. I appreciate that. So was NOAA involved in that webinar yesterday, or did they give the webinar, or?
No, we had 3 presenting companies, each that had their own technology in offshore renewables, and then a moderated discussion with Jason Bush from POET, which is the Pacific Ocean Energy Trust, and he is very knowledgeable on the different initiatives around offshore renewables. I'm sure we had a few NOAA reps in the audience, though, most likely.
Okay. Yeah, you can provide me that information. I'll look into that.
Sounds good. Are there any other questions? We still have plenty of time.
Richard, this is Melissa. Could you maybe just speak to how, I mean, you've kind of touched on it, how things have changed, and also the maybe openness or willingness of NOAA to collaborate more with small companies? I know you've kind of touched on it, but one thing we do hear is just the sometimes a paperwork process for these grants. Again, I think it's alluded to in some of the questions, can be a bit daunting. And so are there any things that you guys have in place to mitigate that? I know that the DOE has sometimes done a 2-phase process just to help, where the first phase is just 10 PowerPoint slides sitting on topics, and then they give an encourage or discourage, and then you move on. Though having done that, I feel like the 10 slides, we kind of put everything we had and what more do you need to know? And then also address, you know, some of these companies have a piece of it and not all of it, and what we can kind of do to get teams of companies together putting forth something.
Yeah, teams of companies. I'm not sure how that works, because with SBIR, we will typically fund one company, and they may have subs, but it's primarily funding the main company. So, but I'm not totally sure what the rules are off the top of my head. I don't think there's any limits on how many subs can be included by the main PI. Regarding changes to the program, one, let me just quickly mention, I kind of briefly mentioned this already, and that's moving from contracts to grants. We are moving, the reason we did that is because we wanted to move away from NOAA providing the requirements. You know, we wanted to move away from saying, okay, we want this specific thing because we're going to buy it when you're done. That's not really the intention of this program, is not for us to provide our requirements out there and for the companies to build products and services that NOAA will buy once this project is completed in phase 2. Because the whole point is that these companies need to be reaching out to other parts, the commercial world, and not necessarily selling to NOAA as your final deliverable. Now DoD is different. You know, they do contracts and they fund companies to do work specifically that they intend to buy when they're done. But NOAA we wanted to get away from that. We wanted the companies to be innovative and provide their do their homework about what NOAA, the priorities of NOAA and how they can provide innovative solutions that are commercially marketable and beyond just NOAA. That doesn't mean that NOAA won't buy the products or services when it's done, but NOAA should not be the primary customer when these are done. Now, second issue is you mentioned what changes were made, and about the issue of it's kind of daunting to write a long proposal and then find out it was not really along what we're looking for. Well, yeah, I totally agree with that, and we will be implementing in October a new process that follows very similar to what NSF does with what they call their project pitch, and what DOE does with their letters of intent. We will be implementing that this time, and so basically what that means is when we release the RFP in October, we will give companies, I think it's 3 weeks or so, to provide us a 2-page high-level proposal of what you're planning to do. And then we will review each of those. We call them letters of intent. It's basically a very high-level proposal, just explaining what your concept is in 2 pages and how much you think it will cost roughly. We review those and then we provide our recommendations back, after about a month, on whether we, encourage or discourage you to submit a full proposal, which is due in early January. So the reason that we're implementing this is to kind of reduce the burden for companies in writing these proposals. A 30-page proposal, that we understand takes a lot of energy and effort to do that, and it takes us a lot of energy to review all those. So if we can have kind of a pre-selection process where we screen out those proposals, 2-page proposals that maybe are less relevant than the other ones, then we save all of ourselves, a lot of work. So we will be implementing that. So you will see that as a new a new process in our RFP that comes out in October for phase 1.
So the next question asks if ASAP accounting is government-wide for SBIR, STTR awards. And I think I've just been looking online for some further information about that, so I can get back to that question. So
Yeah, I will mention, I didn't mention this, but if you have gotten previous grants from the federal government, SBIR or non-SBIR, you will already have an ASAP account set up. You will have already set that up the first time you got your first grant. So if you've already got that done, you don't need to do that a second time, but you will need to access that to be paid. So it's not something that you have to do for each and every grant award that you get.
So the next question, a group of small businesses might form a joint venture. Would the venture still be eligible?
Yes, I believe so. I'd have to answer that definitively. I'd have to go to the SBA policy directive and see what they say, and I could probably pull that up quickly and look for that, but that might take a little more time than we have here. I guess I would have to say I can't answer that right now. I think the answer is yes, as long as they are all small businesses, they meet the eligibility criteria. But I can't answer definitively right now.
One of my clients, says next question, to avoid the administrative burden of the SBIRs, places itself as a subcontractor to an SBIR recipient. Any thoughts about how that would benefit a smaller company?
So the question is it easier administration-wise to be a sub to a small business rather than the lead? Is that the question?
That is the question. I don't know, Jeff, if you want to take yourself off mute and elaborate.
No, I think that's it. Again, the administrative burden can be a challenge to a smaller company, maybe with only a few employees. So, have you seen in your experience companies set themselves up kind of as in the subcontractor role to let somebody else handle the administrative side, that maybe that's more of their expertise?
No, I've not seen that. I'm sure there probably are companies out there that you could hire to handle the administrative side. But I'm not familiar with them. I don't know how that works, but it's certainly something that any company could hire if you can afford it. Hire somebody else to manage the administrative side, but you would still be the lead company. You would still have to be, the lead PI on the proposal, not this, sub who would handle that kind of stuff. But typically, I will say, being a sub is less burdensome than being the lead, because it's the lead that has to handle, drawing down funds from the ASAP system, and documenting how much is spent and, what it was spent on, that kind of thing. So there are some administrative things that have to be done. And as I mentioned, you have to submit a financial report with your progress report, your technical progress report, on either the 3-month or the 6-month frequency, depending on whether it's phase 1 or 2. But I wouldn't say it's the paperwork itself is huge. Doing the accounting is probably more the work on your own end.
And everything I'm finding does require, I would say quite universally, it seems that the SBIR programs would require an ASAP account.
Yes, yeah. Any company or university or any institution that receives a federal grant has to be registered in the ASAP system. So, and that doesn't, that applies to SBIR or non-SBIR. So, yeah, that is true.
Yeah, and we do have Jeff Cummings did provide a link to the ASAP payments and funding, or at least for information as well. So if people want to click on that.
Yeah, and the RFP will have, you know, information on the ASAP system and mention, you know, the requirement that you must be enrolled in the ASAP system in order to get paid. So so you could always check in there. And our website, the NOAA SBIR website, does have, for your information, if you just want to get a sample of all the projects that we funded, you know, the titles, the abstracts, and the company information is all available on our website by year, broken out by year and broken out by phase 1 and phase 2. So that is a resource for you. And in that same web page, not only is there the funded projects that we funded over the last 10 years, there's also all of the RFPs. So if you want to want to take a look at how the research topics have changed over the past 10 years, you can go in and pull that up from each of the RFPs.
Next question, are there likely to be requests for technology hardware, or do you foresee mostly software topics? I've seen a lot of collaboration between NOAA and nonprofits that seems to cut out new hardware development, especially with subsea vehicles.
No. We certainly fund hardware. We fund engineering development of subsurface vehicles. I know we've got several phase 2 projects going on right now, drone-related projects. Oh, seem to be getting feedback. So yeah, no, we definitely fund hardware. We're not just funding software algorithm development. We do fund that, but certainly hardware is you know, a portion of what we fund through the SBIR program. In fact, I would say it's probably more hardware than it is software.
Thank you. That is the end of the questions in the chat. I'm just going to give it a little longer in case anyone has comments or further discussion points. We still have 8 minutes.
Rich, do you maybe, if you have information you want to share kind of about one of the more recent, this SBIR awardees, and maybe some of the benefits if somebody, I mean, any, I guess, tips or tricks as well, if there's something coming up, you know, up, obviously the one that's being released in October, and you're doing to the 2-page, is there anything in particular that you guys look for that scores more points, or, you know, any kind of helpful?
Well, there's in the RFP, we, you know, lay out all the required documents that you must submit. We, you know, at a minimum, you got to make sure you submit all of those required documents. If you don't, then that will result in us kicking you out. Unless it's something small that, you know, we can just ask you after the fact, hey, you need to submit this. And that does happen from time to time. So obviously, if you neglect to submit a statement of work or a budget, then that is grounds for kicking it out. Things that we specifically look for, there's nothing that we specifically look for. You know, we first do an administrative check once the proposals come in. On their, you know, to make sure that they meet the minimum requirements, and beyond just a yay, it's there, or no, it's not there, you know, we don't do any more checks than that. We send it off, you know, once it passes those checks, we then send it off to the peer reviewers, at least 3 peer reviewers, either within NOAA or outside of NOAA. If they're outside of NOAA, they have to sign non-disclosure agreements because we do protect any proprietary information that's in the proposal. So we send it out, and then you know, there are evaluation criteria that are specified in the RFP, and certain number of points. There's typically 4 or 5 evaluation criteria, and the point values sum up to 100. And so you know, we weight each of those criteria a little differently depending on what they are. So it's up to the, we provide instructions to all the reviewers on how to do these peer reviews. And so obviously you need to address anything in the evaluation criteria that, technical, budget, those kind of things, make sure that your proposal addresses all of those evaluation criteria, because that's what's driving the peer reviewer. So beyond that, there's no sort of, I guess, tips and tricks that I can think of off the top of my head. But when we do review these 2-page letters of intent in November, we may include comments back from the reviewers that might suggest how you might improve it, or those kind of things. Generally, those would be very, very brief, I'm guessing. But anyway, is that help, or is there anything else you were kind of thinking of, or?
No, I think that does help. Also, just after Shara gets the next question read, then if you can also address what seems to be the biggest things that you see even in the administrative side where there are drop-offs, so people can make sure.
Well, I'll tell you, last year or earlier this year, we received we had a phase 1 RFP, and I think we received 76 proposals. 75 made it past the administrative side, the check. The one proposal, the statement of work was extremely terse, short, and it was clear that they threw something together quickly, and so that we rejected for that reason. But that's pretty rare. We don't typically at the administrative step reject a lot of proposals. We do sometimes have to go back and get certain forms after the fact. If we do find that we are going to fund a given proposal, we will sometimes need to go back and get some administrative forms that would not be used during the actual peer review process. Anything that we need during the peer review, like the statement of work and the budget, obviously are important for the peer reviewers to review.
The next question is addressing the peer reviewers. It's asking if they're paid.
No. All of the NOAA reviewers do it voluntarily. We don't pay any of them. If they request funding, then we find somebody else typically.
Well, I think that seems to be the questions, and if there's any additional questions, we can put them in the chat now, and we kind of address them with our follow-up. We will be sending out a recording and the deck slide, and then there was a couple of questions that we will be following up on that we'll try to include in that as well. We just want to, I'll let Shara take over, but thank you, Rich.
Okay, sure.
I think this has been very informative, at least for me, certainly. And like Melissa said, if there are any follow-up questions, if people want to mull over the information and then reach out, you can either directly contact Rich through the NOAA.SBIR email that's on this slide right now, or you can also contact Melissa or I, and I am happy to provide you again with our contact info. In either case, we'll be sending out the recording as well as the slides and some further follow-up to some of the questions. I'll probably be doing that later today. And I think that more or less wraps it up if there isn't one last question to squeeze in the next minute. No? Okay. Well, thanks very much, Rich, and everyone else.
Yeah, thank you all for dialing in and your attention. I appreciate it, and I am available if you need to ask any questions. So thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.